everyone should benefit. A case for justice as fairness.
We cannot ignore poverty-related hardship with indifference, or deny that we live in an interconnected global society. We are dependent upon the assistance of others in order to advance our own life prospects. John Rawls' justice as fairness theory recognizes this innate human interdependency and justifies action to address the destructive and often fatal consequences of poverty.
Poverty-related hardship in no way increases the life prospects of the least advantaged in society. In accordance with justice as fairness, we would not consent to inequality in the original position that does not benefit the least well-off. Therefore, we ought to address the gross inequality that generates poverty-related hardship in ways that benefit the poorest of the poor.
John Rawls' justice as fairness theory derives from the principles of justice agreed to by social contractors in a hypothetical original position. The contractors, free and rational self-interested persons beneath the veil of ignorance, completely unaware of their future societal standing, income, intellect, and skills, will decide upon an equal distribution of rights and duties and the difference principle.
The difference principle is an unequal allocation of primary goods, so long as this distribution benefits everyone, specifically the least advantaged in society.
Because the contractors in the original position will understand the desirable outcomes unequal distribution creates, this will incentivize them to prefer their prospects with inequality than without it. Nonetheless, they will still wish to protect against the possibility that they may be among the least advantaged when the veil is lifted. With these considerations in mind, the contractors will adopt the difference principle. Justice as fairness compels us to address poverty by maximizing life prospects of the poorest in society. But what makes it so persuasive?
First and foremost, it yields a theory of social justice that is in fact fair. Its principles are the result of a fair agreement or bargain, arrived at through voluntary consent. The contractors settle on an equal distribution of rights and liberties, and the difference principle, free from coercion or intimidation.
Moreover, they come to this decision without any personal biases. The contractors in the original position only share their ability to reason and a sense of what might constitute justice. No one is able to support principles to favor her particular societal position. In other words, the playing field upon which they deliberate is completely level. Because these principles derive from an initially fair situation, we would do well to incorporate them into our understanding of social justice.
Justice as fairness is also highly persuasive because its principles provide the assurance that everyone in a well-ordered society benefits. The principle of utility, according to which people act to promote the greatest satisfaction of preferences, may necessitate that some, even those who are less fortunate, should forego advantages for the sake of the greater good of all people. This would certainly be an extreme demand. It asks that people care far more about the welfare of all than their own life prospects. Utilitarianism is therefore threatened with instability unless extraordinary sympathy and kind-heartedness can be intensely fostered in most people. Justice as fairness, however, does not require the kind of personal sacrifice utilitarianism demands. Instead, when the two principles of justice are satisfied, each person's basic liberties are secure, and everyone is benefited by social cooperation. This eliminates the need for personal sacrifice that harms one's life prospects. People will therefore be more supportive of justice as fairness and more likely to uphold its principles.
Despite the strengths of justice as fairness, we would like to address some of its weaknesses.
First, we would like to contend that the original position might be deceivingly warped in order to yield a specific conception of social justice. As noted earlier, the contractors in the original position only have the ability to practically reason and a sense of what might constitute justice. This limited conception of the human person, however, strips what it means to be human in the first place.
Rawls conveniently deprives his barely human contractors of wants and desires. Take, for example, the gambling type who is willing to take risks. She would be more likely to accept inequalities that do not benefit everyone in the original position in the hope that she will be among the most advantaged. Rawls assumes that his contractors are risk-averse shades of real people. Yet, can we even conceive such abstract beings?
We can hardly know what a human would be like if she only had some partial level of subjective knowledge. To assume what characterless humans completely unlike us will agree to in the original position seems presumptuous when determining the real definition of justice.
While the rational contractors, construed by Rawls, may fall short as plausible abstract beings, this does not undermine the ethical weight of the principles derived from the original position.
Because people aware of their societal circumstances and natural abilities perpetuate poverty, it makes sense to hypothetically strip the contractors of what human characteristics potentially foster injustice. In order to determine what principles of justice we ought to adopt, we may have to strip down our understanding of human existence to its minimum and potentially inconceivable qualities. In short, justice as fairness helps us understand why we ought to address poverty, because its action guiding principles are fair, and not because its social contractors can accurately be realized in the abstract.
Adhering to justice as fairness may also lead to unattractive practical consequences that potentially violate the right to hold personal property. While Rawls acknowledges the right to hold personal property as a basic liberty, he does not claim that people can do whatever they want with what they own.
The difference principle may necessitate that we heavily tax the most well-off in order to support social welfare programs. For some philosophers like Robert Nozick, this kind of coercive taxation is akin to slavery. It violates people's rights by stripping them of their hard-earned holdings acquired through just transactions.
Carmelo Anthony, for instance, has every right to benefit from his height and inherent basketball skills. If he capitalizes on his athletic ability to become a talented basketball player, Nozickians argue, he should be able to do what he pleases with what people are willing to give him to watch him play basketball. Ultimately, this objection raises an important question about how we are to interpret basic liberties, like the right to personal property, that are widely agreed upon when grappling with justice as fairness.
While Nozickians recognize the importance of individual hard work, they discount the crucial roles institutions and individuals play in helping the inherently gifted prosper. While Carmelo Anthony ought to benefit from his basketball skills in a way that permits him to acquire more money than others, it should not be his choice to then do whatever he pleases with that money.
Anthony may have worked diligently to develop his basketball skills, but he never would have had the opportunity to play for a professional team had it not been for the existence of a professional basketball league, government subsidies to build Madison Square Garden, and his coaches and trainers. Some of his holdings, regardless of how he feels about the matter, should be transferred to the least advantaged because societal circumstances out of his control helped make him successful.
The destructive inequality in our world today that contributes to poverty-related hardship stifles the prospects of the poorest of the poor. Poverty tears the fabric of individual lives and closes doors often open for the affluent in society. In some instances, it can even kill. An equal distribution of basic liberties and the difference principle, both arrived at in accordance with justice as fairness, call for a massive overhaul of the current economic and institutional order. They necessitate that we maximize the life chances of the poorest in society because it is just.
These principles are arrived at in a manner that has been shown to be fair. In a well-ordered society, they do not necessitate the kind of personal sacrifice utilitarianism demands. Even if these hypothetical persons are difficult to conceive in the abstract, it makes sense to strip them of most of their personalities in order to arrive at a sound theory of social justice. Finally, justice as fairness does not violate the right to personal property, but justifiably limits what one can do with what one owns.
We live in a social world in which the life prospects of all people are naturally intertwined. We would do well to appreciate this and adopt the principles outlined in Justice as Fairness in our effort to address poverty-related hardship.